This is a very unique bike compared to most e-bikes I review because it's not often I get to review something that is made by a world-famous designer. In fact, it's probably the only time I've ever reviewed a bike that's made by a world-famous designer. So I wrote some of these things down because I didn't want to miss some of the finer details about this bike that are not necessarily bike things that I can just look at and see. Let me share a few details from Biomega. It's a really nice glittery logo there about this. So it's designed by Jens Martin Skibsted. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly, but that's the best I got. But some of the bikes he has designed are held in collections around the world, and oddly enough, they actually either hold their value or increase in value. Now, could that ever be true for an electronic device like an electric bicycle, that something would gain value and be collectible? I don't know, but if there's one that could do it, it might be this one. They say, this is from the Biomega company, that a 21-year-old Biomega, not an e-bike of course, originally sold for $1,200, is currently listed for sale for $9,200. So it's just an example of how some of their bikes have appreciated to collectors. And I think they're hoping that the same is true for their electric bikes. We'll see. I guess come back to this video in 20 years and let me know what this thing is worth. And I guess the rest of these details I can figure out by looking at the bike. But this is a Class 1 pedal assist only bike, and part of the design of this bike was to try and make something that doesn't look like an e-bike. So the battery is concealed inside the down tube here. At least I think it is, because that seems like the most logical choice. The charge port is hidden up on the front of the head tube here. The motor is a small hub motor, 250 watts in the back rear wheel. And we have a single speed Gates carbon belt drive. And this is, I guess I'll have to refer back to the paper for this for the exact weight, 37.5 pounds or 17 kilograms. So very light for an aluminum frame electric bicycle. Should ride very, very much like a bicycle. This is something you could probably ride without the power on at all, but of course we do have pedal assist. There are 3 different assist settings. I have already connected this bike to the app that they have for this. It's powered by the Hyena system, and something I really like about it that I've seen already is that even though you only have 3 assist levels, you can individually adjust each one. That's something that I wish more bikes had the capability of doing. All of the cables are, of course, internally routed through the frame as much as possible. We've got hydraulic Shimano Dior brakes. One of my favorite features personally is the stem. It is machined out of a single piece of aluminum. You okay over there?
I am, sorry.
Do you need a hand?
No.
Give him a hand. One of my favorite features is the machined stem right here. I've never seen another one like it. It's made out of a single piece, really cool. And then I'll show you another close-up. The headlight is actually inside the handlebars. Definitely never seen that done before either. So there's some really unique things about this bike that make it really cool. They've even custom designed their own pedals for this bike. So everything is very, very bespoke, if you will. But as always, we gotta figure out how much power does it put down, go ride the thing, see, is this a good bike for the price? Which I'll get that out of the way right now. Retail is supposed to be $2,950. That doesn't sound too bad for a quote unquote designer bike, but the pre-order or first orders of the bike are gonna be on sale for $2,250. So if you're interested and you wanna snag one of these at the best deal, be one of those early buyers. And because this doesn't have a throttle, I gotta do the kind of somewhat guessing technique where I pedal a little bit first with no power, then we do it again with the power on and kind of subtract the results. So I'm gonna give it a couple of runs here and we'll see kind of what we get. So first, this is just me pedaling. Usually I put down about 250 watts if I just give it a little bit of a mild effort. Good. It looks like I'm right on target, averaging again right at about 250 watts. And I did about 10 pound-feet of torque. This isn't about me putting down maximum power. For me, it's about consistency. It's just about putting in the same effort both times. So now with the bike on and the highest assist level, let's repeat. If we subtract out my 250 watts, it looks like I did, wow, a lot more than I thought. You can see these are squiggly lines, much more than usual, because that's my pedaling strokes. But I actually got, I have a hard time believing that, but Dyno's always right. This is showing over 1,000 watts, like 1,150 at peak. I'm gonna say 1,100. So wattage wise, that's gonna give us about 850 watts of peak power. Keep in mind that is peak, not continuous. I don't expect that little motor's gonna do that all the time, but that's pretty good. It's more than I thought it was gonna do. And then let's see, torque wise, we almost hit 30, but I'm gonna say 20, 28, kind of on average between our pedal strokes there. But we gotta subtract out my basically 10 pound-feet of torque. So we're gonna say 18 pound-feet of torque. So peak power on this is pretty good, and 850 watts. Now the torque is gonna be towards the lower end on the scale of e-bikes over here. That's to be expected, but that is actually a pretty darn good number. It's kind of around the neighborhood of some of the Utopia bikes, which are very lightweight carbon bikes. It's got a little more power than those, horsepower-wise. If we start looking at some of like the older Rad Power bikes, they were less wattage, but a little more torque, but very, very good for something that's well under 40 pounds. All right, so some other things to point out on this bike. I already said it's a single speed, but with that Gates belt drive, obviously it is extremely quiet. Now because this bike is light, I don't even have the power on yet. You can see I just gave it a few pedal strokes and now we are rolling. It's the great thing about bikes like this. They do ride like a bike. Anybody who used to ride, or maybe still does, a fixie or single speed bike is gonna absolutely love this. First impressions, normally I can get on a bike and like do no hands pretty quickly. This one is a little twitchy, but in a nice, like, feels maneuverable, like, just, I don't know, it's a handling thing that makes it actually feel sporty, if you will. Now, I would tell you about the display, but there isn't one. It's very minimalist, and that's definitely a design choice. So we do have buttons over on the left side here. They're pretty discreet, and on the buttons, what you have is a white light when the bike is on, and if I press the up button to give it a little bit of power, then it turns green. So that's gonna be like our eco mode. And then if we press it once more, it turns yellow. That's gonna give us a little bit more power. One more time, it's gonna turn red, and that is maximum power. That's where we can get that short burst of 800 watts or so that we saw on the Dyno. I thought it was a torque sensor. Now I'm a little confused because the pickup feels a little slow. You know what? There's no brake switches on this thing. This is easy enough to find out. If I put pressure on the pedals at a stop, does it want to go? I gotta inspect this thing now. Genuinely cannot tell. I'm gonna have to look at their specs. Now, I'm not really putting any effort in right now, and it's going. I think this is a cadence sensor. I would have expected a torque sensor on this style of bike and price. Now, I'm not gonna say it's the end of the world. It's actually easier for me to pedal it if it is a cadence sensor, because I can put in a little less effort up these hills and kind of let the motor do its thing. Now, brakes are fantastic. They overdid it on the brakes, and that is never a bad thing. Like, you can do one finger on the brakes and this thing will stop really, really well. They could have gone with a cheaper hydraulic brake. They didn't. They went with the BER level, which on a lightweight road bike feels really, really good. This is going to be probably one of my favorite things. I also am personally a fan of just the lever style that comes on these brakes. Now you see the real advantage of this bike. Like I said, you put in a few pedal strokes and then you can just coast along. It's a bike that's gonna feel swift and fast all the time, even with a tiny little hub motor. And yeah, there might be people with bigger, more powerful bikes that actually go faster, but this feels faster. And I would argue that makes it feel more fun, especially if you are out to get exercise on your e-bike. You know, on flat ground, you really don't need that top power level. We turn it down to the kind of the eco mode on some of these flat sections and see how that goes. There we go, I'm getting the hang of the handling now. There we go. It just took me a minute to figure it out. This is eco mode, mild uphill, very comfortable. I was expecting realistically less power out of this bike. I think that peak horsepower really, really helps it. I like the simplicity of it. No gears, no derailleur clunking noises, just a nice ratcheting noise of that rear hub. The hub itself is almost completely silent. I can hear it if I listen for it, but barely. The normal little like gear whine you'd hear is not really there. It's kind of like a high-pitched whine you might get, and it's just a very, very low little hum. Is not made for off-road, but sometimes I like the feeling of nimbleness, and I like the gravel bike kind of experience. I don't think that's what they were going for, but let's try it out for that. No suspension, although these tires are a little fatter than like a narrow 700C typical road bike tire. I like the bar width. It's a nice feeling. It's not super narrow like some drop bars, but it's narrow enough that you feel like you could squeeze between trees or between signposts on the street, or squeak between cars splitting lanes. It's a nice width that makes you feel like you're compact, narrow, without being out of control. There's a squirrel barking at me. I hear you. I don't see you, but I hear you. So, very maneuverable handling. Very, like, stable. I don't think I'm ever gonna experience speed wobble on this bike. They're using big, fat tubes for the frame all around. I kind of like that part of the design. The taillight is also really well integrated into the seat post itself. Not the post on the frame, but the seat post. It's got these very slim little red LEDs. Looks super cool. Those are some of the little custom things they did on this bike that are very unique. I'll get out of your way. I also feel like they achieved their design goal of making a bike that doesn't look like an e-bike. People can't hear it, you can't see the motor, you can't see the battery. This does not look like an electric bike. And this is the way to sneak through city traffic. All right, we got a couple of speed bumps up here. I like that they went with a slightly wider tire choice and they didn't try and maximize the lowest weight possible. They went a little fatter, a little heavier than they needed to on the tires, but it makes it a nice, comfortable ride. Now, of course, spec-wise, you're not gonna get a battery that's all that big because I gotta hide it in the frame and keep the weight down. But again, that's okay for the overall build of this bike. It would be pointless to try and build everything super lightweight and then put a battery that's more than you really need. Most people don't ride that far every day. Got my workout in. Let me go back over my favorite things about the bike. Number one, brakes. Short little levers, very nice feel. Again, these are nothing super fancy. They're the Shimano Diors. But on this lightweight bike, they feel really good. Some people might find it a little grabby, but not me. I like how sensitive it is, how you can use one finger. It just is really, really nice. They're running the Schwalbe Marathon Plus. These are excellent tires. That explains why the ride felt so comfortable. I didn't even look at them that closely. These are a 26x2. So normally you would expect, like I said, a thin 29er. But no, they went with a slightly smaller diameter, slightly higher volume. I think that was a really good choice to make the bike not feel too stiff, because this is probably quite a stiff frame. I mean, these tubes are really big. They've worked really hard to get all the weld marks out, make everything completely seamless, and hide hoses and cables. You can see for the front, they run the lines down through the stem, down through the fork, and then it just pops out right down here. Makes everything look really slick and clean. The logo, like I said, has this sparkle to it, which I really like. It's a nice little touch without it being like super flashy. Custom Biomega pedals, again, that they have designed. The belt drive, my favorite things. Number one was the brakes. What did I say what number two was? Shows you how good my memory is. Was it the tires? I guess I'm gonna have to go back through this video. Well, let me just keep going with the list of things. You either love it or you don't. In flat terrain, absolutely love it, which is the belt drive. Now in hills, some bikes, I don't like the belt drive, and I want some gears or an internal hub gearing of some sort to get me up the hills. But surprisingly, this bike was deceiving, I feel like, in power. It had more than I thought it was going to, so it wasn't that big of a deal. This all worked really nice, super quiet, very, very quiet little hub in there. I was actually really happy with all of this. I got a little more workout than normal, but that's okay. If you're gonna buy one of these, you are gonna be somebody that wants to pedal and you like that feeling of putting in those pedal strokes and getting some power down. Now, of course, I already said I like that really cool custom Biomega machined stem. Just the fact that it's made out of one single piece, super cool. Now onto the lights. There's the headlight. That's just, I've never seen that done before. Light integrated into the bars itself. Bad, obviously, if you want to change the bars, but from a design perspective, super cool, super sleek. I really like that. And then you get the same thing in the seat post. So you have some LEDs
built in. You can see they kind of go down further. They're flush as they get down, so you can lower the seat down in there. They have this big, bulky seat post clamp. Clearly just very industrial design. Like these parts, when they talk about their other bikes that are, 20 years old holding value, I mean, this part looks like it's gonna last forever. So when I look at things that way, I could see why maybe some of these bikes do actually hold their value long term, because that will probably last a lifetime. This stem will probably last a lifetime. The frame, most likely, will last a lifetime. This does look like it's a very well put together package. I was saying about the build quality on all of those major components is that when you look at this bike compared to some others on the market, spec-wise, the battery size, the motor size, you might think it's a little higher than some of the others. It's not that high for a quote-unquote designer bike, and I wouldn't say it's high at all if you're thinking about the fact that this bike should last. Now, of course, electronics do fail. Those are things that can wear out, but those are things that should be repairable and replaceable. I don't see anything that's so proprietary on here or unique that you couldn't keep this bike going, which thankfully this company's been around for a long time, so hopefully they'll be here for another 20 years to keep their e-bikes going, and they'll have more new exciting models for us to see over the next 2 decades or more. So if you're already a Biomega fan, hopefully you enjoyed this video and are excited to see one of these bikes out in the wild. If you're new to that brand, hopefully I introduced you to something you haven't seen before. I'll put the usual links and everything in the description where you can check these out. Again, the early price on these is going to be $22.50. I think there's going to be a very limited number of those. So if you're looking to snag one of these at that low price, make sure to act quickly.